we were just trying to go day to day, and then we got this wonderful, spectacular unit that we thought was everything we really ever wanted. Well, people started falling, and we hadn't had that problem in the previous unit. And not just patients, staff began to fall. We had this curb that you had to bump people up in a wheelchair or a, once in a while, a stretcher, and that led to falls. We had a curb that was not, you couldn't designate where the curb ended and the asphalt began for the parking lot because it was black. And that led us to intervening by recontouring the curb, creating an ambulance-only entrance and exit, finding an area that we could park wheelchairs, sort of a wheelchair parking lot in the dialysis unit, so that patients wouldn't trip over an extended leg or a footrest, leg or footrest. Painting the curbs in bright neon colors so that when you came out of the dialysis unit at twilight or in the dark, you could figure out where you were supposed to step down. And then finally, we figured out that the floor cleaning preparations and waxing preparations in this new unit were different than from the other unit. And so the floors were slipperier. We also instituted patient care practices which are totally standard now. As the patient came into the facility, we would ask about stumbling, changes in motor capacity, gait, had they had falling spells at home. And we began to try to bring patients that we had concerns about, either in terms of blood pressure stability or just self-reported things that would trigger for the nursing staff a particular set of concerns. We put them closer to the nursing station and observed them more carefully, not only as we started dialysis, through dialysis, but when dialysis was finished. And if there was any question in terms of how they felt at the end of dialysis, they stayed until we were able to demonstrate that they were able to get up and move safely out of the building.
We realized through essentially a near-miss event 5 years ago, one of my partners, Dr. Linetsky, identified that a patient essentially missed, fortunately not a whole course, but missed a dose of antibiotics. And we looked at our process and we said, we do not have a structure and we do not have a process that everybody understands to make sure that things don't get dropped. So effectively, we were relying on the fact that we're all compulsive, which is great, but compulsive people can also be busy people, things can happen. Alan developed a very simple tool, which is a one-page fax back sheet. And we formalized that by saying that this sheet has certain data elements that are captured, but perhaps the most important thing we said to our staff at the dialysis unit is you may not, under any circumstance, put a patient back on dialysis on their, quote, routine prescription. If they were in the hospital and they came back, this form must be there. That was a check and a balance system for us so that we would not we would not have some untoward event happen because something, quote, fell between the cracks. It's simple things that make major differences in people's lives. It's not something that requires profound scientific study. It requires a certain humility and a certain openness of mind to ask your staff and to ask your patients, how are things going? What are problems? How did you get, if somebody did get injured? Patient falls has been an area of great focus because they occur with such frequency, and looking at the simple things.
What we did is we recognized that one of the most important aspects of the dialysis is the interface between the patient and the machine, which is a couple of needles. One of the biggest failures of the technology is the machine will run if the needles are disconnected from the patient, and most of the patient's blood will be on the floor in a very short order of time, and no alarm in the machine will consistently detect that breach. It'd be as if it were possible to fly an airplane with the doors open. And that won't happen. You can't start the plane if the doors aren't open. There's no feedback. So that it's left to the diligence and observation of the staff and the compliance of the patient, which is a very poor tool. So we borrowed from airline safety, which is a good model for dialysis. If you think about sitting in a dialysis machine with your arm taped to a couple needles and you can't get up for 3 hours and your life is in the hands of people you know not at all or vaguely well, who have lots of other tasks to do at the same time. When the RPA and the National Patient Safety Foundation surveyed the dialysis providers as to what the most important safety issue was, it was disconnection from the dialysis machine. So this came out of national data. We found that making the announcement got us where we wanted to go, but we needed staff reinforcement. So we put the CEPT in that was announce, check, remind, document. And so it became part of what you did when you came to the patient's chairside. You reminded them about their access. Well, I think the national data that the RPA and the website has been a wonderful clearinghouse of stuff, because all of that's been out there for a while, but now there's someplace to find it. And if you find that you're not doing as well, or you're not doing as well as you'd like to do, then you go through the plan, do, check, act cycle.